The distress call began as a whisper. It slipped through deep space, weak and broken, repeating the same message again and again. Its signal was old, cracked by damage and fear, but still clear enough to understand. We are under attack. This is a civilian station. We request immediate assistance. The call came from Helios Junction, a massive trade station floating at the center of several star routes. For centuries, it had been a place of peace. Merchants, diplomats, and travelers from dozens of species passed through its halls every day. Now it was dying. Inside the station, lights flickered. Gravity failed in sections. Fires burned where air still remained. The outer defense ring had already been torn apart, its wreckage drifting like broken bones. Beyond the station's shattered hull, the enemy waited. They were silent, massive, unfamiliar. Their ships did not speak. They did not warn. They did not negotiate. They simply advanced, methodical and unstoppable, cutting through defenses that had once protected entire systems. The station's commanders sent the distress call again and again. Across the galaxy, it was received and ignored. In the core worlds, powerful empires watched the signal and looked away. The enemy fleet was too strong. Helping would mean war, and war meant risk. In the outer alliances, leaders argued until the vote failed. By the time help could arrive, the station would already be gone. Some civilizations did not even answer the call. They had learned long ago that survival sometimes meant choosing who to abandon. Helios Junction was marked as lost. Inside the station, the defenders knew the truth. No help was coming. Crew members hugged each other in dark corridors. Some recorded final messages for families light years away. Others stayed at their posts, even as the walls shook and alarms screamed without pause. The distress call continued, automated now. A last habit of hope. It traveled farther than expected, past the borders of mapped space, past systems marked as empty or irrelevant, past a quiet yellow star with old, outdated records. The signal reached Earth. Earth was not considered important. Galactic archives described humans as violent, unstable, and divided. Their history was filled with war, environmental collapse, and near-extinction events. They had reached space late and alone. No great alliance had claimed them. No empire had invested in them. Many believed humanity had destroyed itself. So when the distress call touched Earth's listening arrays, no one in the galaxy noticed. But on Earth, everything changed. Deep beneath the planet's surface, ancient alarms activated. Systems long kept silent came alive. Data streamed across hidden networks. Military commands that had not spoken in decades opened sealed channels. Human analysts listened to the call only once. That was enough. It was not the words that mattered. It was the fear behind them. A decision was made in minutes. No debates. No votes. Just action. Across Earth and its surrounding space, hangar doors the size of cities began to open. Power grids surged. Engines that had never been seen by alien eyes warmed for the first time. Ships emerged from shadowed docks, from hollowed asteroids, from deep orbit around the planet. They were not graceful. They were built to survive. Their hulls were thick, layered with scars from battles never recorded in galactic history. Their weapons were silent but hungry, charged with forces designed to break fleets, not impress diplomats. As the first vessels aligned for jump, Earth sent a reply. Not a formal transmission, not a request for permission, just a single message, aimed back along the dying signal's path. Hold the line. The pause that followed felt endless. Then the message continued. Humanity is on the way. At Helios Junction, the station's systems barely had power left when the message arrived. Officers stared at the screen, confused. Humanity? Some thought it was a translation error. Others assumed it was a mistake, or worse, a cruel joke sent by the enemy. Sensors showed no friendly fleets, no reinforcements, only the enemy, closing in, weapons charging for the final strike. The station commander whispered the truth no one wanted to say. It doesn't matter. We won't last long enough. Outside, the enemy fleet moved into firing position. The distress call finally stopped. Not because help had arrived, but because the transmitter was destroyed. And far away, beyond the edge of known space, hundreds of human warships jumped into the dark, burning toward a battle the galaxy had already given up on. The galaxy did not notice Earth's response at first. That alone would later be remembered as the greatest mistake in recorded history. In the upper chambers of the Galactic Council, the distress call from Helios Junction had already been archived, labeled unrecoverable loss, filed under acceptable casualties. The council halls were quiet now, filled only with low conversation and artificial starlight. The attack was no longer considered a crisis. It was considered finished. Several species had already adjusted trade routes. Others prepared speeches about regret and necessity. A few had even begun calculating how much profit could be made from the vacuum Helios Junction would leave behind. Survival, after all, demanded efficiency. No one mentioned the signal anymore. No one, until the sensors began to fail. At the edge of the core worlds, a long-range detection array flickered. The operator, a thin-limbed being with eyes adapted for radiation, adjusted the readings twice. Then a third time. The data made no sense. Something massive had moved. Not drifted. Not emerged slowly. Moved with intent. The array recalibrated automatically, assuming error. It found the same result. Hundreds of objects had exited faster than light travel far outside known jump corridors. The energy signature was violent, uneven, and dangerously unstable by galactic standards. No known species traveled that way. The operator sent the report upward, expecting correction. Instead, silence. Within minutes, similar reports arrived from other outposts. Deep space sensors began detecting shockwaves. Not explosions, transit scars, the kind left behind by ships that did not care about navigational safety. The galaxy had rules for travel. Whoever these ships were, they ignored them completely. In the council chambers, unease spread. A few delegates requested emergency scans of the source region. The response returned quickly. The fleet had come from Sol. From Earth. Confusion swept the chamber. Earth? That system had not been mentioned in decades. Its data was old, incomplete, and mostly dismissed. The species there, humans, were classified as volatile and short-lived. Their last recorded transmissions spoke of internal wars, economic collapse, and ecological disaster. They were not supposed to have fleets. They were not supposed to have anything. A senior archivist was summoned, ancient even by galactic standards. Its memory implants stretched back thousands of cycles. It searched the deepest records and found something the galaxy had tried to forget. Humanity had once asked for help, long before Helios Junction, long before the current alliances. When humanity first reached space, they sent signals of greeting and curiosity. They asked for trade, knowledge, and cooperation. The galaxy had studied them and decided humans were too dangerous, too emotional, too aggressive, too willing to fight when cornered. The recommendation had been simple. Do not provoke. Do not engage. Do not invite. Let them burn themselves out. Over time, Earth was removed from most maps. Its region was marked as unstable, not worth observation. Watching humans struggle was considered a waste of resources. The galaxy turned away and assumed the problem would solve itself. Now, something was coming from that forgotten system. Something angry. Closer to Helios Junction, the situation had worsened. The station was barely alive. Emergency bulkheads sealed off entire districts. Power was limited to command and life support, where life still existed. Outside, the enemy fleet had formed a perfect encirclement. Their ships were ancient and smooth, built with a purpose older than most civilizations. They did not rush. They did not waste movement. They waited, patient and certain. This was extermination, not battle. The station commander watched the tactical display dim and flicker. No signals, an officer said quietly. No reinforcements. The commander nodded. They had already accepted that. Then a junior sensor tech spoke, voice shaking. There's something else. The room turned. The sensors had picked up distortions far beyond the system's edge. Not energy weapons. Not natural phenomena. Space itself was bending. The enemy fleet reacted instantly. For the first time, their formation shifted. Ships turned outward, weapons reorienting toward the dark. They had noticed it too. In the Galactic Council, panic replaced confusion. Live feeds from multiple systems showed the same thing. Violent faster-than-light exits tearing open space like wounds. No graceful deceleration. No warning flares. Just arrived. The scale was impossible. This was not a patrol. Not a migration. It was a mobilization. Fleet analysts struggled to count the vessels. Every time they updated the estimate, the number increased. And these were not mixed fleets of different designs. They were uniform. Humans. Observers noticed something else. The ships were damaged. Not newly damaged, but old damage. Hull plating was layered over scars. Some vessels bore entire sections replaced with darker alloys, as if repaired mid-war and never fully restored. These ships had seen combat. A lot of it. And they had survived. Back at Helios Junction, the first human ship arrived. It did not announce itself. It did not open communications. It exited faster than light travel directly between the station and the enemy fleet, something no sane commander would ever attempt. Space screamed. Gravity rippled. The ship emerged massive and blunt, its hull blackened, its engines burning white-hot. Enemy targeting systems struggled to lock on, confused by the vessel's raw energy output. For 3 seconds, nothing happened. Then the human ship fired. Not a warning shot. Not a measured response. A full, brutal strike. The nearest enemy vessel shattered, torn apart by kinetic force that punched straight through ancient armor. Shockwaves rolled across the battlefield. Helios Junction's defenders stared in disbelief. That single ship did not retreat. It advanced. More human vessels followed. They arrived in clusters, tearing into real space like predators bursting from water. They did not form neat lines or defensive screens. They charged. The enemy fleet responded, unleashing firepower that had ended civilizations. Human ships were hit. Some were destroyed instantly. Others burned and kept moving. When a human ship lost engines, it did not withdraw. It altered course and rammed directly into enemy formations, detonating at point-blank range. The galaxy had rules of war. Humanity did not follow them. At the council, silence fell as the live feed played. No one spoke. This was not desperation. This was doctrine. Humans were fighting as if they had planned for this moment for a very long time. At Helios Junction, the station commander finally understood. The galaxy had ignored the distress call, but humanity had not. And now, the price of that neglect was arriving at full speed. The enemy fleet began to lose ships. Not retreating, not reorganizing, losing. For the first time since their arrival, the enemy hesitated. And in that hesitation, humanity pressed harder. Far above the battlefield, one final human transmission echoed across open channels, not just to the station, but to the entire galaxy. It was simple, cold, and filled with meaning. You left us alone once. A pause. We learned how to survive without you. The human fleet surged forward, and the galaxy realized, far too late, that it had never truly known what humanity became in the dark. The first seconds after the human fleet arrived were filled with confusion, not celebration. At Helios Junction, the defenders did not cheer. They did not relax. They simply stared at their screens in stunned silence, trying to understand what they were seeing. The tactical display was a storm of overlapping signals, warnings, and energy spikes so intense that several systems shut down automatically to avoid overload. The enemy fleet had never been challenged like this. Their ships had always advanced in perfect order, crushing resistance with slow certainty. Now their formation bent and twisted, forced to react instead of dominate. Human ships did not wait for permission or alignment. They dove straight into enemy space, breaking every rule the galaxy considered essential to survival. Human vessels fought too close. They flew inside minimum safe distances, where targeting computers struggled and reaction time mattered more than precision. Alien commanders tried to pull back, to regain spacing, but humans pressed forward, filling every gap with gunfire and wreckage. The battle stopped being clean. It became violent. Fragments of destroyed ships drifted between living ones, turning the space around Helios Junction into a deadly field of debris. Human pilots used it as cover, weaving through spinning metal and burning fragments, firing through gaps no alien doctrine would ever allow. Several human ships were hit directly. Hull breaches flared open. Entire sections were lost to vacuum. And still, those ships kept advancing. At the center of the chaos, one human battleship took the full force of an enemy beam designed to slice planet-side fortresses in half. The beam carved deep into its armor, melting layers and ripping through internal decks. The ship did not explode. Instead, it powered forward, engines flaring brighter, closing the distance until it was almost touching the enemy vessel. Then it fired every remaining weapon it had. The enemy ship vanished in a flash of broken light. The human battleship finally drifted apart seconds later, its mission complete. At Helios Junction, someone whispered a word the galaxy rarely used anymore. Sacrifice. Not desperation. Don't panic. Sacrifice with purpose. The station commander watched as human ships repositioned themselves instinctively, filling the gap left behind without orders or hesitation. It was as if they had rehearsed losing each other, as if loss was expected. Across the battlefield, enemy commanders tried to adapt. They changed firing patterns, focused on disabling engines instead of hulls, and attempted to isolate individual ships. It did not work. Human vessels operated independently, but never alone. When one ship was targeted, others moved without command to shield it, drawing fire, counterattacking, forcing the enemy to split attention. The humans did not protect their strongest ships. They protected the mission. And the mission was simple. Save the station. Destroy the fleet. At any cost. Inside the station, emergency power stabilized for the first time since the attack began. Life support readings climbed out of the red. Fires still burned, but repair teams dared to move again. The defenders began to realize something terrifying and hopeful at the same time. The humans were winning. Not slowly. Not barely. They were forcing an enemy that had never retreated to reconsider existence itself. Far away, in the Galactic Council chambers, silence had turned into dread. Live feeds showed enemy ships failing, formations collapsing, command vessels destroyed before they could relocate. Analysts struggled to explain what they were seeing. Human technology was not superior in elegance. It was superior in brutality. Their weapons favored raw impact over efficiency. Their shields were thick, layered, and redundant. Their power systems are overloaded by design, pushing limits that would terrify other species. Humans accepted damage as part of movement. They accepted loss as part of victory. One council member finally spoke, voice low and shaken. They are fighting like a species that expects extinction. Another answered quietly, or like one that already survived it. As the battle raged, a new phase began. Human ships stopped charging. They slowed. Enemy commanders, sensing opportunity, surged forward, attempting to reclaim momentum. That was when the second wave activated. Human vessels that had remained silent until now powered up weapons the galaxy had never seen used at this scale. Gravitic anchors locked enemy ships in place, tearing formations apart. Precision kinetic strikes targeted joints, power cores, and control nodes with ruthless efficiency. This was not rage. This was a calculation. The humans had studied their enemy mid-battle and adapted. One by one, enemy ships lost coordination. Without centralized command, their ancient advantage vanished. Individual vessels tried to flee, but humans pursued without mercy, cutting escape routes, forcing confrontations in narrow corridors of debris and light. The space around Helios Junction glowed with the remains of a fleet that had once been unstoppable. Inside one human command ship, officers monitored casualty reports without celebration. Losses were heavy. Ships destroyed. Crews gone. The commanding officer stood silently, eyes fixed on the tactical display. This was not victory yet. The enemy flagship still remained. Larger than the others. Older. Smarter. It had not fired once. It waited. The flagship suddenly moved. Instead of attacking the human fleet, it turned its weapons toward Helios Junction itself. The station. The enemy understood something critical. Humans would protect civilians above all else. The flagship fired. A beam of energy cut across space, aimed directly at the station's weakened core. If it struck, Helios Junction would be erased, humans or not. Human ships reacted instantly. Several broke formation, throwing themselves into the beam's path. Shields collapsed. Armor vaporized. It was not enough. The beam continued. Then a single human ship surged forward, engines burning beyond safe limits. It did not try to block the beam. It rammed the flagship. The collision was catastrophic. The human ship drove deep into the enemy vessel, detonating inside it with controlled fury. The beam was cut out. The flagship staggered, systems failing, hull tearing itself apart from internal damage. For a moment, everything froze. Then the enemy flagship broke in half. The remaining enemy ships lost all coordination. Some shut down. Others fled blindly into deep space. The battle was over. At Helios Junction, the station still lived. The human fleet did not cheer. They regrouped. They scanned for survivors. They searched for remaining threats. Only when the last danger passed did a human transmission finally reach the station, calm and steady. "This is Human Expeditionary Fleet Command." A pause. "You're safe now." The station commander closed their eyes. Across the galaxy, leaders watched the aftermath in silence. Humanity had not just answered a distress call. They had rewritten the meaning of power. And for the first time, the galaxy understood a terrifying truth. The humans had not arrived in anger. They had arrived restrained. And this had been them holding back. The battle around Helios Junction ended, but the tension did not fade. Wreckage drifted through space in slow, burning arcs. Pieces of enemy ships, once symbols of unstoppable power, floated lifeless and broken. Human vessels moved carefully among them, scanning, rescuing, and securing. There was no celebration, no victory chance, only focus. Inside Helios Junction, the station felt quiet for the first time in days. Not peaceful, just stunned. Emergency lights stabilized. Gravity returned in sections. Survivors gathered in corridors and observation decks, watching human ships through cracked viewports. Some wept. Others stood in silence, unable to process what had happened. They were alive. Against all odds, they were alive. Human shuttles docked with the station. The airlocks opened to figures in dark armor marked with simple symbols. The humans moved with calm urgency, carrying medical kits, tools, and portable power units. They did not ask for thanks. They did not explain themselves. They simply helped. Station medics watched in disbelief as human doctors worked alongside them, adapting instantly to alien biology with limited data. Human engineers bypassed damaged systems using tools that looked crude but worked flawlessly. One station officer finally asked the question everyone was thinking. "Why did you come?" The human did not answer immediately. "Because no one else did," they said, and returned to work. Far away, in the Galactic Council chambers, the mood had shifted from dread to fear. The feeds showed the aftermath clearly. Enemy ships destroyed. Survivors captured. Helios Junction intact. Human fleets holding the battlefield with disciplined precision. This was not luck. This was preparation. Council analysts worked frantically, pulling every archived record related to humanity. Old reports resurfaced. Ignored warnings reread with new understanding. Humanity had not gone quiet after being ignored. They had gone inward. They had fortified their system. They had watched the galaxy from a distance. They had studied alien warfare, trade routes, and political behavior without ever announcing themselves. They had prepared for a galaxy that would never save them. One council member finally voiced the realization spreading through the chamber. "They did not build a fleet to conquer us." Another finished the thought. "They built it because they expected to stand alone." Silence followed, because every civilization in that room understood what that meant. A species that prepares alone does not fight for glory. It fights to survive, and survival leaves no room for weakness. Near Helios Junction, a human command carrier powered down its weapons for the first time since arrival. Inside its bridge, the atmosphere was heavy. Casualty reports scrolled across the displays. Ship losses, crew counts, names. The human admiral stood at the center, hands clasped behind their back. Their faces did not show anger or pride, only resolve. They had known this would be costly. They had still come. An officer approached quietly. "Long-range scans are clear. No enemy regrouping detected." The admiral nodded. "Begin recovery operations. Prioritize civilians. No mention of pursuit. No call for vengeance. Humanity has achieved its objective. The enemy had been stopped. That was enough." At the edge of the system, human ships formed a loose defensive perimeter. They did not press outward into galactic space. They held position, guarding Helios Junction like a shield made of steel and will. The galaxy noticed. Messages began to arrive. Carefully worded. Polite. Nervous. Former allies of Helios Junction offered delayed support. Trade guilds asked for status updates. Military coalitions requested joint operations. Humanity responded to none of them. Not yet. Instead, one message was sent to every major listening post in the galaxy. This system is under human protection. No threats. No demands. Just a statement of fact. The effect was immediate. Enemy movements across multiple sectors slowed. Fleets halted mid-deployment. Long-dormant defense platforms powered up in panic. Humanity had drawn a line. and the galaxy felt it. Back on Helios Junction, the station commander met the human admiral face to face. The room was still damaged, walls scorched, lights dim. It felt small compared to the weight of what had occurred. "You saved us," the commander said. "The galaxy will want to know how to repay you." The admiral shook their head slowly. "We didn't come for repayment." "Then why?" the commander asked again. The admiral looked out toward the stars, where human ships held their silent vigil. "Because one day," they said, "it could be us sending that call again." The commander understood. Humanity did not trust the galaxy, and now the galaxy had to live with that. As recovery continued, captured enemy vessels were examined. Their technology was ancient, refined over millennia of conquest. They had never faced resistance like this. Human analysts studied the data with cold efficiency. This enemy was not alone. They were part of something larger, a force that had erased civilizations quietly, methodically, over time. And now, that force knew Earth existed. The admiral received the report and did not hesitate. All fleets remained mobilized. They ordered. This was not the end. On Earth, planetary defenses remained active. Shipyards continued production. Training simulations ran without pause. Humanity did not relax after survival. They doubled down. In the Galactic Council, a final vote was called. A proposal to officially recognize humanity as a major galactic power. The vote passed unanimously, not out of respect, out of fear. And somewhere, deep in space, remnants of the enemy transmitted a warning to their distant masters. The galaxy had changed. The forgotten species had returned. Not as victims, not as saviors, but as something far more dangerous. A protector that remembered what abandonment felt like, and would never allow it again. The enemy did not retreat in fear. They retreated in calculation. Far beyond Helios Junction, in regions of space no modern charts described correctly, surviving fragments of the shattered fleet regrouped. Their vessels moved in silence, carrying damage and data in equal measure. They had lost ships, lost commanders, lost certainty. But they had learned something far more important. Humanity existed, and humanity was dangerous. Within the enemy's ancient command hierarchy, that single truth outweighed the loss of an entire fleet. They had seen countless species rise, resist briefly, and vanish. None had fought like this. None had adapted so quickly. None had accepted loss with such cold purpose. Humanity was not just another civilization. Humanity was a variable, and variables had to be erased. The decision was made without ceremony. Do not return to Helios Junction. Do not engage the human fleet again on their terms. Strike at the source. Strike at Earth. The enemy armada began to gather. Ships older than some stars powered up from long dormancy. Weapons sealed for centuries were reactivated. Entire battle groups were redirected from distant campaigns. This was no longer an extermination. It was a purge. Across the galaxy, the shift was felt almost immediately. Trade routes went silent. Communication relays detected massive movements in deep space. Civilizations that had ignored Helios Junction now felt a creeping dread as their long-range sensors screamed warnings they could not fully understand. Something enormous was moving, and it was moving toward Sol. At last, the galaxy spoke. Messages flooded human channels. Offers of alliance. Requests for coordination. Apologies dressed as diplomacy. Promises of shared defense and future unity. Humanity reads them all, and answered none. Instead, Earth prepared. Orbital platforms that had remained hidden powered up around the planet. Their silhouettes were harsh and functional, layered with weapons designed for one purpose only: to stop whatever came next. Shipyards ran without pause. Crews rotated through combat drills refined by centuries of simulated extinction scenarios. Civilian populations were moved underground with practiced efficiency, not panic. Earth did not ask if the enemy was coming. Earth assumed they were. At the edge of the Sol system, human fleets formed defensive arcs, overlapping fields of fire covering every approach vector. This was not a display meant to intimidate. It was a wall. At Helios Junction, the human admiral watched long-range projections with narrowed eyes. The enemy's movement pattern was unmistakable. They're bypassing everything, an officer reported, ignoring undefended systems, ignoring strategic targets. They want us, another said. The admiral nodded once. They want Earth. The room fell quiet. Everyone there understood what that meant. If Earth fell, humanity fell with it. The galaxy would watch and learn nothing. The Admiral opened a secure channel. All fleets, they said calmly, prepare for system-level defense. This is not a forward engagement. This is the final containment. No one questioned the order. As the enemy armada advanced, something unexpected happened. Several galactic fleets began to follow at a distance. They did not move to intercept. They did not open channels. They watched. Some did so out of fear, others out of guilt. A few out of cold calculation. If humanity fell, the galaxy would need to know how. If humanity won, the galaxy needed to see it. The enemy arrived at the outer boundary of the Sol system with overwhelming force. Their numbers dwarfed the fleet that had attacked Helios Junction. Their weapons were fully deployed. Their formations were tight and precise. They had learned. They did not rush. They advanced like a tide. Human forward scouts engaged first, not to win, but to measure. They traded fire briefly, then pulled back, drawing the enemy inward. The enemy followed. They believed this was a retreat. They were wrong. As the armada crossed the system's defensive threshold, space itself changed. Humanity activated Earth's true perimeter. Minefields detonated in controlled patterns, not to destroy ships, but to break formations. Gravity distortions bent trajectories, forcing enemy vessels into predictable paths. Long-range kinetic batteries fired from hidden platforms, striking with delayed precision. The enemy armada slowed. Then it stalled. Then it began to lose cohesion. Human fleets surged forward, not recklessly, but deliberately, hitting exposed flanks and withdrawing before counterfire could concentrate. This was not the brutal charge at Helios Junction. This was restraint sharpened into a weapon. The enemy adapted again, shifting tactics, deploying countermeasures. Ships were lost on both sides, explosions lighting the dark like dying stars. But the enemy pressed on. They always pressed on. And slowly, inevitably, they reached Earth's orbit. That was when the galaxy understood its mistake. Earth was not a fragile homeworld clinging to survival. Earth was a fortress. Planetary defense arrays activated in full view of every observing fleet. Energy beams lanced outward from the planet itself, synchronized with orbital weapons and fleet fire. The combined barrage tore through enemy vessels with devastating efficiency. The enemy flagship emerged at last, massive and ancient, its hull etched with symbols of civilizations long erased. It moved with deliberate confidence, absorbing punishment that would have destroyed lesser ships. Its weapons are locked onto Earth. Across the planet, alarms sounded. Not panic alarms. Confirmation alarms. Human command acknowledged the targeting. They had expected this too. The Admiral's voice echoed across the fleet. All units, they said, do not break formation. Enemy fire struck Earth's defenses. The planet held. Shields flared. Defense grids rerouted power. Cities beneath the surface felt the tremor but remained intact. Humanity had not built Earth to survive peace. They had built it to survive annihilation. The enemy flagship fired again. And again. Each time, Earth endured. Then the human fleet moved. Not all at once. Not in rage. In layers. Fast attack vessels harassed the flagship's outer defenses. Heavy cruisers targeted weapon emplacements. The boarding craft launched under covering fire, slamming into the enemy hull. For the first time in its long existence, the enemy flagship was boarded. Human soldiers entered its corridors, fighting through automated defenses and ancient guardians. The enemy had never imagined a species would dare such a thing. Inside the flagship, humans saw records of countless destroyed worlds. They did not hesitate. They advanced. Outside, the battle reached its peak. Enemy ships attempted to break through to Earth, but human fleets closed ranks, sacrificing position and hull to block every path. A human carrier was split in half. Its remaining section continued firing until it was gone. The galaxy watched in horror. And all, at last, the enemy flagship's weapons fell silent. Moments later, it detonated from within, torn apart by internal collapse. The remaining enemy ships faltered. Some attempted retreat. Humanity did not pursue them far. This was not vengeance. This was a message. Earth remained. The Sol system was secure. And the enemy, for the first time in its ancient history, had failed completely. Silence spread across the battlefield. Human fleets held position, damaged but unbroken. On Earth, the skies were calm. The Admiral exhaled slowly. The enemy had made their choice and paid for it. Across the galaxy, every civilization understood the new truth. The species they had ignored, the world they had written off, had just defended itself against extinction and won. Victory did not arrive with celebration. It arrived with silence. The space around Earth was filled with wreckage, drifting slowly through fading weapons fire. Emergency beacons blinked from shattered hulls. Fires burned where vacuum could not fully claim them yet. Human ships held position, many damaged, some barely functional, but still forming a protective shell around the planet. Inside command vessels, casualty reports continued to update. Names scrolled past without pause. Crews lost. Ships gone. Entire units erased. Human officers did not look away. They never did. On Earth, civilians remained underground, listening to calm, measured broadcasts that told them only what they needed to know. The planet was safe. Defenses were holding. Humanity still stood. What the broadcast did not say was how close annihilation had come. In orbit, the human admiral stood on the bridge of the command carrier, staring at the remains of the enemy flagship. It had broken apart unevenly, as if something inside had torn itself free. Boarding teams were still inside the drifting wreck, searching for data cores and survivors. Resistance was minimal now. Whatever intelligence guided the enemy had not expected humans to fight from within. The Admiral already knew what the reports would say. The enemy had records of countless worlds. Worlds erased without warning. Species cataloged, tested, eliminated. Humanity had been next. An officer approached quietly. Evacuation ships are clear, they reported. All civilian traffic has exited the combat zone. The Admiral nodded. Good. Another officer hesitated. We're receiving long-range signals. Observers. A lot of them. The galaxy was still watching. Humanity had known they would. The Admiral turned slightly, eyes still on the battlefield. Let them, they said. Outside, human recovery operations intensified. Rescue craft darted between debris fields, pulling survivors from shattered hulls. Medics worked in zero gravity, stabilizing the wounded while under the shadow of Earth itself. Human ships prioritized one thing above all else. Lives. A damaged frigate drifted powerless, its engines gone. Enemy wreckage tumbled toward it, threatening to tear it apart. Without orders, two nearby cruisers moved into position, placing themselves between the frigate and the debris. They took the impact. Armor cracked. Shields failed. The frigate survived. This pattern repeated across the battlefield. Humans absorbed damage meant for others. They always had. In the Galactic Council chambers, no one spoke. The feeds showed the truth too clearly to ignore. Humanity was not chasing fleeing enemies, not expanding outward, not demanding surrender. They were stabilizing, securing, protecting. One council member finally broke the silence. They could have pursued, they said. They could have destroyed every remaining enemy ship. Another answered. They chose not to. That choice unsettled them more than any weapon. Because conquest was familiar, restraint was not. Back in orbit, the Admiral received confirmation from the boarding teams. Enemy command data had been secured. It confirmed what humanity feared. The enemy was not a single empire. It was a cycle, an ancient force that culled the galaxy periodically, eliminating emerging threats before they could challenge the balance of power. Humanity had interrupted that cycle, and cycles did not forgive disruption. The Admiral closed their eyes for a moment. This was not over. Not really. A message request came through from Helios Junction. The station commander appeared on the display, their image tired but steady. We've completed emergency repairs, the commander said. Your crews saved thousands. The Admiral inclined their head. That was the goal. The commander hesitated, then spoke carefully. The galaxy will ask what comes next. The Admiral did not answer immediately. Outside the viewport, Earth rotated slowly, blue and whole and alive. What comes next, the Admiral said at last, is that no one faces extinction alone again. The transmission ended. That message did not stay private for long. Humanity opened a single broadcast channel, unencrypted, visible to every listening system. It was not a speech. It was not a threat. It was a statement. We did not seek this war. We did not start it. But we will not allow it to continue in silence. The broadcast showed images. Destroyed enemy worlds. Erased civilizations. records pulled from the enemy flagship's memory cores. The galaxy watched its own history rewritten in real time. Species long thought lost to natural disaster or internal collapse were revealed as victims of something far older and more deliberate. Fear spreads faster than light. Humanity continued. We survived because we were ignored, because we were left alone to harden. Others were not so fortunate. The images stopped. The screen went dark. No demands followed. No call for allegiance. Humanity lets the truth stand on its own. On Earth, recovery continued. Damaged orbital platforms were towed into repair positions. Emergency manufacturing lines shifted to replacement parts. Training simulations updated with data from the battle. There was no pause. There never was. In a quiet chamber beneath the command carrier's bridge, the admiral reviewed the final casualty list. The room was empty. They read every name. This was the price humanity always paid. Not because they were careless, but because they chose to stand where others stepped aside. An aide entered softly. "Sir," they said, "the observing fleets are requesting communication. Formal recognition. Defensive treaties." The admiral looked up. "Not yet." The aide nodded and withdrew. Humanity did not rush into alliances. They had learned what dependence cost. In deep space, the remnants of the enemy scattered, fleeing into regions beyond current maps. They carried with them fear for the first time. They had faced resistance before. They had never faced refusal. Humanity had not begged to survive. They had decided to. As the last fires in orbit faded, Earth's skies cleared. From the surface, the stars looked unchanged. But the universe was not. Across countless worlds, leaders replayed the footage again and again. The moment humans blocked a beam meant for a planet. The moment a crippled ship rammed an enemy flagship without hesitation. The moment humanity stopped short of annihilation. It was that last moment that lingered, because it meant something profound. Humanity was not fighting to rule the galaxy. They were fighting to make sure it still existed. And they were willing to bleed for it. The admiral stood once more on the bridge, watching the stars. They knew what would come next. More battles. More loss. More choices where sacrifice would be required. Humanity would face them as they always had. Together. Quietly. And without asking permission. The galaxy did not celebrate humanity's victory. It exhaled. For the first time in generations, systems that had lived under quiet, unnamed fear felt something loosen. Trade lanes reopened cautiously. Civilian traffic resumed under heavy escort. Long-range sensors kept watch not just for enemies, but for signs that the nightmare might return. And everywhere, one truth echoed. Earth still stood. At the Galactic Council, the emergency chamber filled beyond capacity. Species that had not spoken in centuries demanded seats. Observers from minor systems, protectorates, and forgotten colonies flooded the galleries. This was not a meeting about politics. This was about survival. At the center of the chamber, a projection of the Sol system hovered in silence. Not as a target, not as a threat, as a reference point. The council speaker finally called for order, though their voice carried none of its usual authority. "We have witnessed events unprecedented in galactic history," they said. "A single species halted an extinction force none of us could stop." Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Some delegates looked ashamed. Others looked afraid. A few looked relieved. The speaker continued. "The question before us is simple. What is humanity to us now?" No one answered immediately, because no one wanted to say it out loud. A representative from the border system rose slowly. "They are not conquerors," they said. "They did not claim territory. They did not demand tribute." Another voice followed. "They are not saviors either. They did not ask us to follow." The chamber grew quiet. "They are a constant," the border delegate finished. "And we have never planned for that." The vote began soon after. Not because agreement had been reached, but because hesitation felt dangerous. The resolution passed with total consensus. Humanity was formally recognized as a major galactic power, not as an empire, not as an enforcer, but as a sovereign protector species, with full authority to act against existential threats without council approval. The chamber did not applaud. They watched the results settle into history. On Earth, the news was received without ceremony. Human command acknowledged the resolution with a single transmission. Recognition noted. Nothing more. At Helios Junction, reconstruction accelerated. Human engineers worked alongside alien crews, sharing techniques without lectures or superiority. They did not replace alien systems with human ones unless asked. They adapted. They reinforced. They taught survival through redundancy. The station commander watched the work from a rebuilt observation deck. The view was different now. Human ships still held position, but their weapons were powered down. Their presence was unmistakable, yet calm. Protective. The commander realized something then. Humanity did not defend by control. They defended by presence. Across the galaxy, smaller systems began to request human advisors. Not fleets. Not weapons. Experience. Humanity sent teams. Not soldiers. Logistics experts. Engineers. Strategists who specialized in worst-case scenarios. They taught how to build shelters instead of monuments. How to design fleets that could lose half their ships and still fight. How to prepare for abandonment. Some civilizations resisted. They did not want to admit how fragile they were. Others listened. Those systems changed forever. Deep within the data recovered from the enemy flagship, a final revelation emerged. The extinction cycle was not unique. It had happened before, long before the current galaxy existed as it did now. Civilizations rose, grew comfortable, and trusted systems larger than themselves. Then they were culled. Humanity had survived because they never trusted comfort. They never assumed rescue. They never believed peace was permanent. The Admiral read the report in silence. This knowledge did not frighten them. It confirmed what humanity had always suspected. That survival was a choice made every day. A delegation finally arrived on Earth. Not in warships. In civilian vessels, unarmed and openly marked. They requested an audience. Humanity allowed it. The delegates were escorted not to a palace or fortress, but to a simple council chamber overlooking the planet's surface. Blue oceans, green continents, weather systems in constant motion. A living world. The lead delegate spoke carefully. "We owe you our existence," they said. "We failed at Helios Junction. We failed countless others. We don't know how to repay that." The human representative listened patiently. "You don't," they said at last. The delegates looked confused. "We didn't act to earn debt," the human continued. "We acted because extinction anywhere eventually reaches everyone." "So what do you want?" the delegate asked. The human considered the question. "Remember," they said. "Remember what happens when you ignore the dark." The meeting ended shortly after. No treaties were signed. No alliances declared. But something changed. Across the galaxy, defense doctrines were rewritten. Emergency protocols updated. Distress calls reclassified as mandatory responses. No system wanted to be the next one abandoned. And none wanted to face humanity's judgment for doing so. On Earth, the Admiral stood before a memorial newly constructed in orbit. It was simple. Names etched into metal, floating against the stars. There were no symbols of victory. Only loss. Human crews paused as they passed it. Some saluted. Others just stared. This was how humanity remembered. Not with statues. With responsibility. The Admiral received a final report. Long-range scans showed no immediate enemy movement. The remnants had vanished into deep space, wounded and cautious. They would return one day. Humanity knew that too. The Admiral issued a single standing order. All fleets remain ready. Not mobilized. Ready. There was a difference. Across the galaxy, life resumed. Children were born on worlds that would have been erased. Ships launched from ports that would have gone dark. Civilizations continued, unaware of how close they had come to ending. But the stars felt different now. Heavier. As if the universe itself had taken note. Humanity had not conquered the galaxy. They had changed their behavior. And that, many realized, was far more powerful. In the quiet that followed, one final truth settled into collective understanding. The galaxy had learned how to breathe again. Because somewhere out there, Earth was watching the dark. And Earth did not look away. The galaxy did not mark the end of the war with fireworks or festivals. It marked it with silence. Across thousands of systems, observatories remained open long after their shifts ended. Sensors stayed tuned to the dark. Patrols flew wider arcs than before. Civilizations that once trusted distance now trusted vigilance. They had learned something fundamental. Peace was not the absence of threats. Peace was the presence of someone willing to stand in front of them. Earth did not announce an era. Earth simply remained. Human fleets withdrew from the Sol system slowly, deliberately, taking positions along vulnerable corridors and forgotten borders. Not as rulers, not as occupiers, as watchers. Some ships never returned home. They stayed where distress calls were most likely to come from. Engines warm, crews rotated, weapons idle but ready. Humanity did not claim territory. They claimed responsibility. At Helios Junction, the final repairs were completed. New docking rings gleamed beside old scarred hull sections left untouched as reminders. Trade resumed, cautious at first, then steady. The station's central hall gained something new. A memorial. Not grand, not dramatic. Just a single pillar of dark alloy, engraved with names from dozens of species. Those lost when help did not arrive. Those lost before humanity answered. Visitors often stood there longer than they intended. Some cried. Some simply touched the metal and moved on. Human engineers had suggested leaving space around it empty. Crowds would cheapen it, one had said. The station commander agreed. In the Galactic Council chambers, meetings resumed under new rules. Distress calls were no longer suggestions. They were obligations. Votes to ignore them required justification to be broadcast publicly. No civilization wanted to be recorded as the one who turned away. Especially not now. Because everyone remembered the footage. The moment human ships jumped into darkness without asking permission. The moment they blocked a beam meant to erase a world. The moment they stopped short of revenge. That last moment haunted the galaxy. It was easier to understand rage. Harder to understand restraint. On Earth, life continued. Cities rebuilt damaged orbital infrastructure. Schools updated history lessons that now extended beyond the planet. Children learned that humanity was not alone in the universe, and that being alone had once nearly killed them. They also learned something else. That humanity answered calls, even when no one else did. In a quiet museum beneath Earth's surface, the original Helios Junction distress beacon was placed behind reinforced glass. Its casing was scorched. Its power core is dead. A placard beneath it carried only a few words. This signal was ignored. Visitors stood before it in silence. They did not need an explanation. The Admiral visited once. Alone. They did not stay long. They already carried the weight of it. Across deep space, the remnants of the enemy watched from hiding. Their fleets were scattered. Their certainty shattered. They had faced something new. Not superior technology. Not overwhelming numbers. Refusal. A species that did not accept its place in the cycle. A species that remembered abandonment and chose to end it. The enemy would return someday. They always did. But now, they hesitated. Because the galaxy was no longer soft. Human advisors had changed doctrines. Fleets were built thicker. Systems designed to fail gracefully instead of catastrophically. Civilians trained for evacuation instead of denial. Hope had become practical. On the edge of a minor system once marked expendable, a human patrol ship responded to a small distress signal. Pirates. Nothing major. The response was quick and precise. When the fight ended, the patrol did not linger. They checked survivors, repaired damage, moved on. The rescued crew never learned the patrol ship's name. They only knew it came from Earth. And that was enough. In the Galactic Council, a historian finalized a new entry. Not for a species. For a moment. They titled it simply, The Answer. The entry did not glorify humanity. It did not exaggerate the enemy. It stated facts. A distress call was sent. No one answered. Then humanity did. That was all history needed. On Earth, the Admiral stood once more beneath the stars, now quieter than they had been in months. Fleet traffic had thinned. Emergency protocols stood down to readiness. Not relaxation. Readiness. An aide approached. Long-range scans remained clear, they said. No hostile movement. The Admiral nodded. Good. The aide hesitated. Do you think they'll remember? They asked. The galaxy. Do you think they'll remember this, years from now? The Admiral did not answer right away. They watched a civilian transport pass by, escorted by a single human frigate. Small. Unremarkable. Protected. They don't have to remember us, the Admiral said at last. They just have to remember not to ignore the call. The aide understood. Far from Earth, on a world that would never know how close it came to extinction, a child looked up at the night sky and saw a streak of light cross the stars. A ship passing through. They made a wish. They did not know who flew that ship. They did not need to. The galaxy no longer felt empty. Not because it was full of empires, but because somewhere, someone was listening. Humanity had not become legends. They had become a constant. a background presence the universe could not erase. And that was the greatest change of all. Because the next time the dark reached out, the next time a signal whispered through space, weak and afraid, it would not travel alone for long. Somewhere, alarms would activate, engines would warm, and humanity would answer, not for glory, not for conquest, but because once, long ago, no one answered them. And they had sworn the galaxy would never make that mistake again.